Ham radio is doomed. I was talking to a few old friends who were big into ham radio, and I say were. They still love their hobby and were still remembering their DX experiences. But with the cell phone era, they said the hobby got killed. So I mentioned my interest in creating excitement with mesh networks, digital modes, and QRP experimentation. The response I got told me that ham radio is doomed. Want to hear their thoughts in my rant response? Stay tuned. I've reread some of the purposes of ham radio as stated in Part 97 of the Rules of the Amateur Radio Service. Let's just look at the first three. A. Recognition and enhancement of the value of the amateur service to the public as a voluntary, non-commercial communication service, particularly with respect to providing emergency communications. B. Continuation and extension of the amateur's proven ability to contribute to the advancement of the radio art. C. Encouragement and improvement of the amateur service through rules which provide for advancing skills in both the communication and technical phases of the art. I think there are a couple of takeaways here that I'd like to focus on. One is voluntary, non-commercial communication service, and second is contribute to the advancement of the radio art. So if I read this right, ham radio is not just about getting HF radio and doing CQ all night, getting signal reports and logging it. That is just a proving ground for creating a successful communication platform. The main task was the journey to get there. Tweaking antennas, learning how to communicate, talking about gear, learning about electronics. In other words, experimenting. As I study for my extra license exam, I'm overwhelmed by the amount of technical knowledge I need to have. I guess I need to be able to build a radio, pretty much. And it kind of establishes a tone that says there's always going to be a lot of learning involved, and I like it. There's an experimenter's focus in the test. I'm drawn to ham radio as a technology experimenter. This is the part of the hobby that excites me. This is to participate in the advancement of the radio art. But these old-time hams just tell me that perhaps their initial motives when they started didn't fully match the purpose of Part 97. Apparently they think that real men only use their voice on the radio and all other digital stuff is crap. We only talk to real people. This is actually what was said to me. When I talked to these friends about ideas for creating a communication data network and helping support that through existing towers, I got the most negative possible response. It was like, no one's going to be interested in that. In fact, most of the people already had their license lapse. Yes, no interest is what they said. We already have our radios for emergencies. We don't need to get involved in all that computer stuff. Well, true. If you don't create something interesting, it will be boring, and people will leave. Young people will just stick to their zucking cell phones, and ham radio will die as the old people in ham pass away. I'm telling you right now that as a technology expert, the idea of radio communications in my hands and not in the hands of the telecom company is interesting. I just created a video that showed how I established my own long-distance broadband network and pretty much can see that this proves the practicality of a private network that needs no centralized architecture like the internet. No watchers, no fees, no tracking. Personally, I don't really engage much in conversations on ham radio. The busy channels here are the 440 megahertz repeaters. Lots of conversations all day, but I'm too busy for small talk. I'd like to excite people with possibilities with technology. Why should the telecom companies have all the fun? I was thinking to myself of some of the flawed thinking of the old time ham people. In a real emergency, if I had to compile a list of, let's say, survivors of, let's say, 1,000 people, am I supposed to get on the radio and read 1,000 names out on the radio one by one? Are we in the 1940s? Why not send a file with all the names on a digital emergency network, not just voice? Many practical examples where data is better than voice. Passing documentation or manuals, passing photos and video to show the extent of damage, for example. Passing email without a grid, without cell, without internet. To me, that's pretty fun. Admittedly, when I think of things like a mesh network, I actually have other motives. I'm thinking of an alternative to the internet and telecoms to retain my privacy. I'm thinking beyond just emergencies. Although that's pretty interesting to see if a network survives when the grid is down. Even for HF radio, digital modes such as WinLink, which is email sent over radio, or texting modes like PSK31 have immense value because they can be sent over low power. This means if I'm battery operated, I can still communicate where my voice can't be heard. This is why even Morse code or CW is still an important tool to have because it requires the least power and no computers. Well, I don't know Morse code yet, so I can't really be too proud of myself on this, but at least I can get it translated with a low-power Raspberry Pi. Until technology freaks like me get in here and cause excitement with innovations and new applications, this is going to be boring. And yes, if this kind of limited thinking about ham radio persists, then ham radio is doomed. I hope new people into ham radio go beyond this old-fashioned thinking. I'd like to claw back my communication infrastructure away from telecoms and social media. I think there's value in that. That excites me. Maybe you'll find something else exciting in this hobby. Let's doom the old-fashioned thinking about ham radio. Let the new blood in ham radio come up with exciting new ideas. If you like my content, guys, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. Thank you.